This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
What's happening? It's another Mail It In Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take, so you know shit's going down today. That's right, Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with you. Rosie, how you feeling on this Friday, my man?
Oh, just hanging out in the frozen tundra that is our lives out here lately, but it's all good, dude. It's Friday. How about you?
Feeling good, feeling good. It's a bit different in these parts. As you know, I was in Florida a couple days back. You were in California a week ago. It is a subtle difference, I would say, going from those temps, but certainly I can't complain in these parts here in Toronto. It hasn't been half that. I know in Alberta it's been fucking cold, eh?
Yeah, we had a pretty good fall, and then winter came hard and fast, so waiting for one of those breaks that we get with the Chinooks, and that'd be pretty nice, to be honest. But
I know.
hockey's hockey, and there's always something to watch on the tube if you're stuck inside, so we're all right.
Netflix, right? There's always Netflix. You can't forget that. And we found that out the hard way for like 2 years during a pandemic. Remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review wherever you're checking us out. Don't forget to visit LeafsNation.com for the very latest happening on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, lots always happening with this team as we prepare for Saturday's game against Tampa Bay Lightning. Could be a milestone night, as we know, for Mitch Marner. Thoughts, comments, concerns, or questions, drop us a line in the chat down below here on YouTube. We'll get to that later on in the show. But I wanted to set the scene for you off the top here before we jump into the topics and go over the boards. Let me take you back to the year 2003, Rosie. Widely regarded as one of, if not the best draft classes of all time, 7th round, 227th overall, the Tampa Bay Lightning select Jay fucking Rosehill. What do you remember about that day?
Can you imagine if it wasn't the heaviest draft in history? I mean, you'd be looking at a first or second rounder right now. I mean, I got screwed.
Dude, the names on this list. The names on this list are impeccable. Like, I love to go back like every 2 months and look at the 2003 draft. Marc-Andre Fleury, Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Dion Phaneuf, Eric Stahl, Corey Crawford. Oh, yeah, that Patrice Bergeron guy in the Boston Bruins. Like, it really is incredible, the talent level of that draft. I think you're bang on. Those guys aren't in there. I think you're probably like 12th overall, right?
Yeah, let's not get crazy, but that first round is ridiculous. I was talking about that with someone else recently about like, what year did Nail Yakupov go first overall? Like 12, 11, 10,
around there,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it's just like you put the 03 draft against that one, and it's hilarious. You go down that first round, look at how many NHL games have been played. I think every single guy has played in the show off that first round. There was one guy hanging out, and it was Hugh Jessamine, also known as Huge Specimen, and he grinded her out for a while, and then eventually got some games in the show. But yeah, that's just a ridiculously deep draft class, and I like to think that I'm absolutely part of that. Like, no question. 227 is not that far away from 1 to 30, you know?
Dude, unequivocally you are. But what do you remember? Because I always like to ask people that, like your draft day and sort of the different perspectives, right? From a first round or a 7th round or a 3rd rounder. Like, how did it all go down? Like, I'm sure you weren't there, right?
No, it didn't go. So like I had gotten listed with Central Scouting's rankings and stuff. So I kind of had a heads up about, paying attention to it. But man, we were so naive, and my family wasn't like a crazy, like we were a hockey family, but we weren't like following hockey. My parents didn't know anything about Central Scouting, the draft, any of that stuff. So I just kind of had my eye on it. And obviously the first day goes by and had no expectations clearly on that. But as the second day goes by, I mean, I don't even think like I would have had to dial up to the internet and sit there and watch. So I was just kind of waiting around to see what I heard. And I remember I had just gotten out of the shower and my mom said the phone was for me. And it was this kind of a local guy who was trying to be an agent. And he had kind of told me that Tampa just took me. And it wasn't even a Tampa Bay employee or anything like that. So I just gotten let know by kind of a local agent who just wanted to call me first. And then eventually a care package got dropped off, this nice leather bag embroidered with Tampa's logo, and my draft jersey was in there, and a bunch of swag and stuff like that. And it was just like, whoa. And then instantly they're telling you like, you got to be at this Traverse City tournament for this and this prospect thing there. And then away you go. And all of a sudden you're just part of an organization. It was awesome, man. It was just awesome. Like you just instantly with one phone call, get your foot in the door of the NHL by being property of an organization. So pretty wild, man. It was fond memories for sure. And yeah, I was lucky to have been picked up at all.
Not for anything, but you defied the odds, right? How often do seventh rounders make the NHL? So that's pretty damn impressive, man.
Yeah, it's less and less likely as you go, but there's schools of thought. I mean, once you get drafted, you're kind of pigeonholed to that organization. What their depth chart is, who their coaches are, what their plans are, is all kind of a one-way street. Where other players, it's nice to get drafted and be part of an organization, but if you look at other players, say they play college, especially, you can play those 4 years of college, get really friggin' good. You're in your young 20s, and you start to really develop in college. Then all of a sudden you come out of college and you're a high prospect and you're nobody's property. It's kind of nice that you can just go through the depth charts and the pipelines and the organizations and see where you fit. And then some of those guys do really well when they don't get drafted, develop in college, and then get to kind of have their pick of like 10 teams that are interested and see where they fit best. So it's kind of funny that way, but it didn't work out really with me for Tampa, and I had to get myself out of that organization. And at the end of my time with them, it was trying to get away from them, to be honest. So it's funny how it works, but yeah, you just gotta hit the grind button, man, and make it happen.
He says that with a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey behind him, but that's your draft jersey, right?
Yeah, draft jersey back there to 03, baby.
I
Deepest.
love that. Very well done. And yeah, it's just spectacular stuff to hear stories. We need a sponsor, Storytime with Rosie. So if you're watching right now and you want to sponsor Storytime with Rosie, please do so. And we'll do so more often here on the podcast. With that in mind, let's get over the boards. I guess at some point in time, we should jump into the Toronto Maple Leafs conversation. Hell, they're probably the hottest team right now in the NHL. And what a month of November. So you weren't here yesterday, Rosie, but again, 11-1-3, 25 points. I thought it was incredible to figure out that they only gained 3 points on the Boston Bruins. We talked about the standings the other day. Just shows you how dominant Boston has been. But the Maple Leafs outscored their opponents 49-32, 3.27 goals for to 2.13 goals against. It really was an unbelievable month for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a big time month, man. It's funny because it doesn't seem like that long ago we were just stepping into November and it was like, what the hell was that October? And what's going to happen? And then it's like, well, they've done this before last year and look how hot their November was. And it's like, why would you think that that's going to happen again? This isn't, replay. Things don't just happen the same way they did just because of last year. And lo and behold, I mean, they go 11-1, man. It's ridiculous, but it's awesome. They found that gear. They found their chem, and for no real reason. I mean, they were riddled with injuries. They lost both their goalies. It's like there's really no reason for this to happen. But all you can do as a fan and a follower of that team is be like, I love what you found, and keep going and keep finding it, keep playing towards it, and try to. The most important thing to me is understand what it is that's doing. Sometimes it's just like, holy shit, we're winning all of a sudden. You got to pinpoint what that is and be able to access it all the time when things aren't going well. So they haven't even really had to run into that this whole month and go through much adversity. During games, they went through adversity, obviously, with injuries and whatnot, but geez, they're rolling right now. And I just hope that they understand why and can continue to do so, right?
For me, the most impressive thing is the fact that you're without Morgan Riley, you're without TJ Brody. Jake Muzzin's been out for a long period of time. Who knows if we'll ever see him again in a Maple Leafs uniform. And you continue to keep trucking along with guys like Mac Hollowell and like Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren, like guys who are obviously relatively raw and green at the NHL level, really being pushed up. And then your guy, Mark Giordano, I think has been an evolving story. I mean, a guy a couple of years back wins the Norris Trophy, a late bloomer for sure. And it seems like everybody's taking on a specific role and elevated their play. And the team buy-in, and I know I've been covering this team for a couple of years, I can't remember a buy-in and unity the way I've seen it the last little while, where it's like there's no way on paper you look at that roster, this team should rattle off victory after victory after victory, and then they do so. What's impressed you the most about this run?
Yeah, like you say, I mean, that means a lot for you to say that because you have been following them like almost religiously, like call it your whole life, but especially since you've been in
Yeah.
media and you've been disappointed so many times and you've heard the hype and it doesn't come to fruition so many times. And we've gone head to head on those attitudes about this season for sure. But the fact that it does feel, I think it was Bizanet, Biz tweeted something out that said, "Hey, Leafs Nation, can you admit that something feels different about this year?" And I don't want to get ahead of myself, and it is only, December, very first week of December, but it does feel different, and they have every reason to not be doing any of this, and they keep defying it. And then I think you nailed it, the team buy-in and the team defense. I mean, we're coming up against the Tampa Bay Lightning right now, and we've allowed less
Yeah.
goals than they have this year. And it's not all about that high risk, sometimes high reward hockey that they're famous for kind of playing with their guns. It's an actual buy-in of defense first. The goals will come. Don't panic. Adversity's fine. We don't worry and we don't fret. We don't grip our sticks. We don't abandon the system when the going gets tough. And it has been impressive, man. And obviously now they're starting to make a habit of starting slow and getting hot in November. So, whatever. I'm a big proponent of the only thing that matters is this year, and this year's different than any other year, and it's all up for grabs on what's going to happen here on out. But I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better November.
Lead up question: what's different? No, don't answer it. We're going to talk about that ad nauseum over the next couple of months. It's the same team. I'm sorry, it's the same team. I've seen this rodeo 3 billion times, but I
Still.
enjoy the regular season. They're a phenomenal regular season team, Rosie. But until they prove it in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's going to be the same old story and narrative for me. Having said that, I think Tampa is a perfect example of a team. Like, I tweeted this out on Thursday. Remember early on in the first, 10, 12 years of Steven Stamkos' career, he was always the guy who couldn't get the job done, couldn't win the big one. Now you move forward 3, 4, 5 years later, he's going to be known as one of the more winningest players of his generation, surefire Hall of Famer. So that script can be flipped. Alex Ovechkin's another example, right?
Yeah, and same with the Colorado Avalanche and
Yep.
their core, right? It happens and it takes time. And I mean, that's the whole thing to me that I've been preaching with Leafs Nation is like there's the fans are so passionate and they follow it so closely that it's easy to get down on them when they don't do it
Yeah.
for you. And I know they have a more unique history than most, but let's just say the last 5 years, it's like, man, these guys can't do it. They're not getting it done, but it takes time. Look at those examples you just said. I mean, Alex Ovechkin is a first ballot legend, one of the greatest to ever play the game. It took him a long time to do it, and he did it once. The guys in Colorado in that core couldn't get it done, and we're super disappointing in the playoffs for a long time, and the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. So it does take time. It's not rare for teams to be good on paper and have good regular seasons and not be able to get it done. But with this Atlantic Division, you look at how it's stacking up, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are right there, and the Panthers, and obviously Boston doing what they're doing this year, and it's just like, yeah, like it is just gonna come down to the playoffs, and you just have to make sure you're a better team and that you can turn it on when you need to, and win those games, especially those elimination games, and be confident in yourselves, not to grip your stick and get all nervous and be like, oh God, everyone's watching, I hope it doesn't happen again. Like, it's so easy to do that with the scrutiny in Toronto, but you just gotta have faith that those guys are mature enough and that the team is actually good enough to get her done. And obviously that's yet to be seen, but all we can do is analyze what's going on right now, and all things are green light right now.
That assessment is bang on. You got to crawl before you walk. And again, trust me, there'll be plenty of conversations ahead that will head down narrow and dark hallways. Trust me, my friend. December outlook. Here we go. A new month. The Leafs coming off 11-1-3 November. They were 4-4-2 in October. So they have 12 games, 5 home, 7 away. We mentioned Tampa. Tomorrow night will be the first of 2 against the Lightning this month. 9 of 12 will be against playoff teams from last season. 5 versus the East. I mentioned 2 against Tampa, 7 against the West. And they wrapped the month up, as you see there, with a stop at Ball Arena, one of my favorite arena names in the NHL, sponsored by Ball Arena, against the Colorado Avalanche, who won the Stanley Cup. We're also pacing themselves to start this season. So a nice measuring stick month ahead for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Rosie.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of everything, a little mixture of home and away, a mixture of top-tier teams and not so much top-tier teams, a mixture of in-conference, out-of-conference. Looks like mostly out-of-conference, really, but, that's kinda nice. Get out there and feel yourself out against teams. It's nice when, you can prepare yourself against a team you haven't seen so you can kinda get up for it and pay attention, and it's not, like, mundane by any stretch, but
Yeah.
I haven't compared it against the December they had last year to follow up that big November, but again, just hopefully they're rolling, and I think after this December, it could very well look a lot different injury wise as far as going into 2023, and hopefully it's a very positive change. But you know, uh, no stretch. I don't care what calendar and whose calendar it is and what month it is, you slap it up there on the screen and it's a whole shitload of NHL teams, and not one of the games is easy, not even that one there against the Arizona Coyotes, as we found out in October.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know which game I'm fucking absolutely dreading already? That fucking game, because they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose that game against Arizona. Rest assured, because they're gonna look ahead to the Colorado game. Like, it's book it right now.
Let's remind ourselves to throw a little $10 wager on it to see, because I am not gonna predict that they're gonna lose to that shit box again.
Dude, I will not get over that loss. I'm sorry. Like, I know I came on here heated after that loss to Arizona. It just didn't make any sense. And I know people tweet me every day now, every time Arizona beats a wagon team, because they've actually been performing actually pretty admirably considering who's on that roster, who's missed time. But I will, for the life of me, never get over that game. And you say this is a different team and a changed team. Can you explain what the fuck that was in October? Then, like, every game they came out and it's like they didn't want to be there. Like, again, they look like me at a beer league hockey game where I was just out for a loop. Maybe I pick up a goal, maybe I pick up an assist. I go home, crush a couple beers, and that's it. That's all. I just don't know how you can go from that to winning every game and being really, really consistent defensively.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at those games, it was kind of like, I kept saying, somebody fucking do something, like do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of
Yeah.
feeling things out. And like, I hate to say the effort level wasn't there, because that locker room would laugh
Yeah.
at you saying, you're seriously saying we weren't trying. But I mean, just how it looks, it's like they didn't have the
Hmm.
jump on the puck. They didn't have the hunger. They didn't have the confidence. They were kind of feeling things out and waiting for someone to do something, waiting for something to happen, and no one actually took charge and made it happen. And that bit them in the ass. But it is a new roster. It is a new team. There's new bodies, there's new players, there's new systems and new thoughts and new ideas. And it's not like last year just because the core is the same. It is very different. And I think, obviously it took them time to figure shit out, and they have obviously figured it out. So I don't put stock into that. I think that, like I said, let's make a wager on that game at the end of this month. Unless something drastic happens with injuries and whatnot, there's just not a
No,
chance.
no,
But
no. You're not walking back. You're not walking back now. This guy's already burying himself. Oh, unless there's injuries, I'm going. No, we're gonna bet on that game.
Okay, well, anyone can beat anyone in this league. That is still true, no matter how embarrassing
Come
that
on.
garbage organization is, and that is proven. But I would never, ever take the Coyotes against this year's Toronto Maple Leafs. So I will stand
Dude,
true to that bet, no doubt.
you know what sucks is that fucking Austin Matthews is gonna be wheeling around at ASU, but it's the holiday season, so none of the birds are gonna actually be there at ice level. So it's
That's
like
actually
fuck.
good. There's going to be no babe distraction down there. I remember when LSU or when the ASU got a team, and I was like, when I got was looking at scholarship options and whatnot, there was a lot of cold and
Ooh.
quiet cities on the map there, and I was like, I had no chance at ASU. I can't imagine the distractions going on for that college team, and also the Coyotes playing around those areas too. There's a lot of healthy looking ladies in that area, but hopefully they're not going to be there to distract Austin Matthews and lose my money.
I would love to know what the prerequisites are to get a scholarship to play hockey at ASU, because that's the number one place. If I was ever really good at hockey, that's the one spot I am checking out now, especially with an NHL team. But let's move on. I also think it's interesting. It's always a faux pas, or it's become a faux pas in the hockey world to ever question the effort level. But again, you watch teams play, especially the Leafs in October. You have your serious concerns and questions about that team. But again, much different story in the month of November. So Toronto and Tampa coming up on Saturday night, and of course, everything will be built around Mitch Marner and the point streak record. Eddie Olczyk, of course, Darryl Sittler. It really, really is impressive what this guy's put together. We didn't have you on yesterday to score that empty netter. I love the response, and I'm sure you saw the video after the game in the dressing room.
Yeah, pretty cool. That was wicked actually in the dressing room. That doesn't happen all the time, and I think it's, well, I shouldn't say that. It's just not caught on camera all the time. But these days,
Yeah.
all those little tidbits are caught. I remember growing up in the NHL, cool shots was like the coolest thing in the world because you could actually see guys like in the locker room and like see behind
Yeah.
the scenes and see like the trainers running around, and you're like, oh my god, I just wanted to get a glimpse because I thought the show was so cool. But all you know is like the camera view from center ice watching the game. So that access is cool, and I love seeing that shit where it's just like the boys being the boys and everything else. Obviously, everyone's super excited for Mitch, and I like that this is a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I like how it is, kind of a redemption game. I think it's the first time we've seen them since Game 7 of the playoffs last year. So I think the focus of winning this game is much more important than even last game when Marner had potential to tie the record. So I'm glad that that's kind of hopefully mentally going to overshadow the Mitch's thing, and he can just go out and do his thing and hopefully get it. But honestly, at the end of the day, getting 2 points against these guys right now and getting that line in the sand that we're a better team right now is much more important than that record to me, albeit it would be very disappointing if he didn't do it tonight after all these points strung along for 18 games straight. Or is it
And the
17?
interesting thing here is that he's going to have to beat one of the top goaltenders on the planet, the Leafs are, in Andrei Vasilevsky, who I think would be the first to admit himself thus far. Having said that, Thursday night they beat your former team, the Philadelphia Flyers, quite handily, a 4-1 win. And they're feeling much better about themselves as they go home. But I can tell you right now, watching a lot of Lightning games early on in the season, they haven't looked like the same team. Defensively, specifically, as a fantasy hockey owner, Victor Hedman is a guy I've watched really, really closely this season. He's struggled. I think he's pacing himself. In fact, he's off the first power play unit, if you can believe it. Mikhail Sergachev's had a really, really good start. Hedman has 1 point in the last 11 games. But these guys always seem to step up when it matters. So rest assured, Kucherov's going to show up. Stamkos is going to be there. Hedman's going to be there. I'm really looking forward to this one because I do think this is one of your classic measuring stick games. And I think on top of that, the Maple Leafs can create a bit more separation because I think if the one thing we want to talk about, and I know we're far away from the Stanley Cup playoffs, but you would love to have home ice advantage, assuming you're unlikely to win, in my opinion, at least number one in the division. Granted, Boston still has plenty of time to fall off a cliff, but you want to find your way to a Game 7 where it's on home ice, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is important. You look at last year going back and forth and who's winning where and where is that Game 6 and where is that Game 7 and
It was
that's
in Toronto.
important stuff, man. You want to play at home more often than not, and you want to have control. You want to start the series off the first 2 games in your barn where you're comfortable and you eat your pregame where you need to and you sleep in your bed for your pregame nap and you got your fans just jacked and your pregame your pregame theatrics in the barn are just freaking electric and the boys are fired and the other team is like, oh boy. Like you want that bad. So these points do matter. The regular season does matter. The standings do matter. But I attribute kind of a little bit of a slow start with Tampa. I mean, how do you go to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row, win 2 of them? I mean, so many goals of that locker room have been accomplished and then some. It's kind of like, how do you get up for an October game? How do you get up for, everything seems a little bit played down because you've kind of done everything. So I'm hoping that hangover continues and these guys kind of fall off. But as we know, there's people ready to take their place right there, as in the Bostons of the league. And it never gets easy. There's always a high-end team. And if you want to win, it is never bloody easy in this league. So, I like the measuring stick with this game here coming up tomorrow. And like I said, hopefully that they're not too focused on Marner's deal and they're focused on winning this game.
The story that's not being spoken about, by the way, because it's been all Marner, and I get it. Toronto's won 5 in a row, man. They're on a 10-game point streak. They haven't lost in regulation, if you can believe this. Pretty incredible. Remember that November 11th game, that emotional weekend, Borje Salming, his final trip to Toronto? That game, remember
Yeah.
Casey DeSmith got the win as a Pittsburgh Penguin against the Maple Leafs on the road. That was the last time the Leafs lost in regulation, if you can believe it.
I know. It seems like every time we do a show, there's no grumbling and there's no whining. It's just kind of like what are they doing to continue this? And I mean, a 10-game
Yeah.
heater where you have gotten points is huge. And I mean, that's why their record in November is what it is. I mean, you put together a streak like that, it's going to get you a big month. So definitely nice. And yeah, it does go a little bit overshadowed. And I think overshadowed also is
Yeah.
our goaltender situation. Like,
Yeah.
how good has Matt Murray looked? How good has he been? We've got Samsonov back now, so we finally have that 1-2 punch for the first time, and we've barely been talking about it. Like, that's what excites me the most is who's playing tonight. Is it Murray or do we go down to Samsonov? Who cares? They're both like a 1-2 number one goalie. Like, whoever, that's been proven already. Samsonov stood up and he was the number
Yeah.
one goalie. I was like, wow, how's Murray going to get back in? Samsonov goes down, Murray comes back in. Holy shit, how good does he look right now? And staying
Yeah.
healthy is the only thing that could really worry me in these guys. But they're both playing so solidly, and I don't even care who starts. It's irrelevant to me. We both have a great chance to win with both of them. So that's a nice thing that's been not really talked about. And that Mitch Marner thing, when you're doing something that special, obviously overshadows it. But who cares? There's nothing but positivity coming out of the T dot right now, and it's a good time to be a fan.
You can't help but take a peek at what's going on in Edmonton with Jack Campbell right now, if you catch my drift. The wrap up is brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. Cha-ching is fucking right. I had the Colorado puck line last night against Buffalo. It hit. That was a wild game. Nathan McKinnon, 5 points, a 6-4 win for Colorado. But I decided to put Rosie on the clock for this fabulous Friday. So go ahead, Rosie.
Yeah, you gave me another shot. It was a little disappointing. I hope everyone didn't clear out the RRSPs on that one, but we got
I know
I
you were
mean,
confident. You were confident.
again, I didn't know the Broad Street Bullies were going to Broad Street bully it, man. That changes everything. I'm a fan of that. I got the Winnipeg Jets at home tonight. They're playing the Columbus Blue Jackets. Jets are 14-6. Jackets are 7-12. I mean, a huge mismatch, obviously. Again, anyone can beat anybody in this league. But, I mean, the Jets just came off beating the Colorado Avalanche 5 Cobb right now. They're obviously got something going on. And the Blue Jackets are 30th in the NHL, not doing a whole lot. And I know that that Johnny Gaudreau, I've been watching him for a few years, and I know how soft he is. So coming up to the Winnipeg winter and being far away from his mother, that was so hard on him in Calgary, I know that he's probably going to be non-existent. So let's go puck line. -1.5. Winnipeg Jets at +105 money. Let's go, baby. Tonight's the night.
Holy shots fired. I love that. And I love the confidence in the call. And as you know, I called a bounce back season for Connor Hellebuck, so I'm feeling great about that. And Rick Bowness was my selection for the Jack Adams Trophy. Still lots of racetrack left in this season, but he's done a fabulous job, especially with Nikolai Ehlers only playing 2 games so far. Winnipeg has been a great story. And in general, that Central Division has been mayhem, where we all thought Colorado was going to run away with things. By the way, Jim writes in, we just want Mitch to play well and get results in the playoffs. Sure, these personal records are exciting and great. We just want and care about a good first-round playoffs. Go Leafs, go. I want a victory in the playoffs. I don't just want to show up and be like, yeah, we're there. We're Team Canada in the World Cup. We got swept. We choked. No, I want some results, Rosie. I am tired of let's be there. I need some results in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But again, we're going to have that conversation a lot over the next 5-6 months.
For sure. But I agree with what he's saying. These personal accolades are neat and everything, but they mean nothing. No one remembers it at the end of the day. And again, it's getting tougher and tougher for this team to get through the first round, obviously, because it's all anyone thinks about and it's always on the radar, and people don't just let things happen and let this team grow and mature. And rightfully so. You're playing in that market. You got a lot of people who care about you, and that's also a positive thing. So, hey, they're doing everything they can at this point. That's all you can ask for. But that bet's a sure thing. And if it's not, it's the weekend, and people will hopefully forget about it by Monday.
Yes, exactly. And I think if you want to grow and mature, maybe you can go grow and mature this weekend at a local establishment or bar or both.
Yeah.
Mr. Grow and mature over here. I'm over that shit, man. Let's get it. I wish the playoffs started tomorrow, man. Fire me up. But yeah, Mitch Marner's going for the point streak record again. That's going to be a phenomenal game, and don't forget to check us out on Monday for a full recap of that. Hopefully, we're talking about a milestone night for Mitch Marner and that the Leafs extend their win streak to 6 games and an 11-game point streak. So we'll talk on Monday, okay, Rosie?
Yeah, boy. Sounds good.
There you have it. Excellent job, my man, Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Take care. Have a great weekend.